is a national program. There's about over 150 chapters throughout the U.S., so typically if you're traveling anywhere, you can find a 1 million cups. Thanks to our sponsors, you can see up here, we have great sponsors that have provided us support so that we can make this happen. All of us, the organizers or volunteer, we're entrepreneurs ourselves, and so we love being part of this community. So just encourage you to invite your friends, come present. We love hearing what you're working on and how we can connect and help each other out. So with that, we're going to start off with John Dinkle. He's giving us an update. We've heard from him before talking about LaunchPod Media. Okay, so all things podcast. This guy is the man. So let's bring him on up.
So I walked in this morning and they're like, we need a first presenter. So I am now the first presenter. You're welcome. No leading questions, Jim. All right. So I'm the CEO of LaunchPod Media. We've been around for 9 months-ish now, but I've been doing podcasting for a number of years. We're a podcast agency and production house. That means we do everything but talk into the microphone. I turn on the lights, make sure the stage is ready, the crowd is full, and we make sure the experts and the people who are authorities in their field get a voice and actually get their content out there, disseminated amongst their highest innovators, their diehard fans, and the people who are actually looking for them. So that's magical clicker. Okay, so quick notes with podcasting, what we do. So there is a lot of problems with authority. People who want to get their information out there, the subscription models are slowly dying. To get now information on YouTube, for example, you have to get it up to YouTube, then they have to subscribe, and they have to hit the notification bell. Then they have to go into your phone, turn notifications on, and then as long as your notifications are on, when it comes up, there's a pretty low chance that you're going to go and actually watch that video. Podcasting doesn't have that issue. It's the last true subscription model. Also, it has some really, really fun rates. This deck was not meant to be viewed on this type of screen, but give you a quick run through of things is this chart right here. 94% listen rates, we got that up to 97 actually this month. 89% open rates, and 64% of the podcasting audience will purchase something from a podcast every 4 months or so. So, actually every 3 months, my bad. So basically, people who listen to podcasts listen to the podcast every time it comes out, all the way through, every single time. When was the last time you had an email that was actually read by the person all the way through and wasn't automatically sent to spam? Now imagine that email was an hour and a half long talking about exactly what you're an authority in. That's the power of podcasting. And that's the power of my phone dinging with the silent off. But I'm not going to pay attention to that because it's not my podcast. But podcasts have been growing significantly over the past couple of years. We've seen crazy growth rates. And every single year, this is the popular view of the medium, the market, we've seen over the past couple of years, people listening more and more to the ads. They're now more effective than television ads. They're more effective than social media ads. Podcasting ads, if you were just to look on how much it costs per click for a podcast ad, is $60 to have your name on there once for them to click through on podcast advertising. But to get a podcast ad actually out there is significantly less expensive, particularly if it's your podcast where people are coming every single week or every single day to your podcast going. I got to get used to this direction. So let me kind of give you an idea of what we do at LaunchPod Media. So we focus in on 3 specific areas: growth, discoverability, and authority. We help your business grow, we get your business found, and we give you authority. Let me explain a little bit how we do each of those things. So over the past, when I was about 23, 24, I wanted to fight back against my college professors, as one does. And so I published a paper thinking that's a great idea. I'll publish a paper and they'll respect my opinions because it's scholarly. And they didn't like it. I was in the Japanese major at BYU. And so to piss them off even more, I decided to take my grumps to the internet and start a podcast about Japanese grammar. Yeah. super, super interesting, super, super niche, and I decided to do a 5-minute daily show teaching the basics of Japanese and an actual usable function. I interpreted for the LDS Church for a number of years. I was a patent translator. I worked in 3 different countries doing interpretation, so I figured I kind of had a little bit of a background, but I was also a cocky 25-year-old kid. Within a year of my podcast going off, I crossed the 1 million download threshold. Within 6 months of my podcast going, I was the #1 Japanese podcast in the world. And now my podcast is the #1 Japanese podcast in 7 countries, and hundreds of thousands of people listen to it every single month. It's a bad day if I get, about 20,000 downloads a day. And we've been able to replicate that success over and over and over and over again. From talking about birth to talking about Amazon selling, from talking about health and holistic medicine, all the way to talking about how to be an awesome mother. Doesn't matter necessarily what we get people to talk about. It matters that we can get in front of their audience, their business continues to grow, and they become that brand authority by building that relationship with their audience every single day. So we work specifically with brands. We're a B2B company. We usually work with B2C companies, help them connect with their audience. We do a copious amount of market research. We do a silly amount of A/B testing, competitor analysis, keyword research, so that our podcasts always reach out to who they're supposed to be with. Usually within the first 3 months, every single podcast that we produce is rated within the top 4 of whatever category that we're working with. And usually the podcast ends up paying for itself within a couple of months. Because the fantastic thing about podcasts is you can, yes, of course, run ads or do funny little sponsorships, and people can hear all about Blue Apron and MeUndies till the sun comes home. But when you build a relationship with people via their car speaker every single morning on the East Coast to the West, they'll purchase from you every 3 months, 64% of your audience. And the best thing beyond that is that when you say, I'm the expert in home care gardening, and you say, hey, this new thing comes out, they're going to trust you. But if you come up with something of your own to sell, people snap it up because they have a relationship with you every single morning. When I say 97% open rates, it's not 97%, they click the thing and then kind of play it. It means they listen to the entire thing, give or take 30 seconds. If they cut out 31 seconds, I don't count it as a listen. So we've had a lot of fun success with some of our companies that we worked with. We got these back up in February. In February, when I first came in here, I was just as excited about podcasting as I am now, but I've been able to see the growth over the past couple of months. We've gone from a company worth the mind and thought of a 27-year-old bald guy, and now it's worth about 1.5 million in EBITDA value. And we're planning on taking and opening up our second office in March in Japan. My big pain point, here, I'll do that cute little slide if you'd like to contact me. My big pain point now is being in a startup and doing a agency, which is a service in an industry where I become an extension of marketing teams, is that the closest thing that I've hired to people on my team that I know and trust and worked with for the past 3 or 4 years is I've hired people to mow my lawn because I'm highly allergic to grass. And I once tried to hire a kid to do an assignment that I didn't want to do, but then I learned that was bad, so I didn't do it. So hiring people has been a new challenge for me, and making sure I can organize my team, because at the rate and the speed I'm growing in such a new industry, the time it takes to train them is exorbitant. And so I would love to hear any insight or advice on tearing down what I built up so far, and see if you can poke any holes. I'd love to answer any questions about podcasts as well. And if you have any insight into hiring in an agency or a marketing vendor extension, I'd love to hear about that as well. I'm LaunchPod Media, John Dinkle. Thank you very much. Jim.
Am I allowed to ask questions?
You are allowed to ask questions.
I think one of the things you didn't bring up is the obscure small clients.
Yeah.
Some of us think, well, we're not big enough. And you might talk about the success of just the initial of our hat maker.
Sure. We have a lot of people who when we first got started, we took on a lot of what we call our portfolio clients, basically clients to show people that we knew what we were doing. Because when I bring up my yearly fee and my yearly contract, before people, come back and seize up a little bit, I tell them about some of the success we have. So, for example, we did one for a company out of Logan that was they do Amazon selling. We did some market research, found out they had a good audience. He does a new client for them is a large amount of money. So if they get 1 or 2 extra clients every quarter, it's really, really nice. Within the first month, they had 12 new clients. In the first 2 months, they had pulled on 4 more. This last month, they pulled on 5 more. We did another podcast just this last week with the algorithm update on Apple. I know you guys don't read terms and conditions when your iOS updates, but that's what I get to do every Saturday. And we got 2 of our new podcasts to rank top 52 business podcasts. We did top 100. We have all of our podcasts in the top 100 of whatever category we're in overall rankings of all podcasts, but from Birth Circle to now being one of the top birth podcasts in the country, which is a tiny little startup here, which is like basically a Rolodex for birthing experts. They've had some fantastic success. And then we just got another one of our podcasts based out of DC, who's now being interviewed on the top 10. She's going to circle for the top 10 business podcasts in the country in just a little bit. So it gives her a nice authority and some great success money-wise.
What differentiates you? This is really interesting.
Thank you.
What differentiates you in the marketplace from the other platforms that provide services that are similar?
Yeah. There's a lot of great podcasting coaches. There's a whole bunch of fantastic production houses that we have wonderful relationships with. In fact, there's a guy who kind of does something similar to what we do in Colorado called Sweetfish. There's 2 things that widely differentiate us between everybody else. No one focuses on the back end when it comes to the analytics and the optimization that we do, which gives us an exorbitant advantage over everybody else. And I mean, there's other people who can edit podcasts just as well as I can. There's other people who can even market probably better than I can when it comes to podcast. But when combining the analytic background, the technical background that we have, plus the relationship we've had with Apple and Spotify, there isn't a single agency on the market who can even hold a light to any one of our podcasts. And I've only said that in the past 6 months, and a lot of these guys have been going for about 3 years. And it's unfortunately for them, the numbers that they're able to pull in isn't even a tenth of what I've been able to pull in on any show.
What generate your fees?
My fees, so I do a yearly contract. As of September 1, we adjusted our prices up for our market. We do a year contract. For the first 2 months, we do market testing, competitor analysis, A/B testing, and a considerable amount of research. If we find that your market isn't big enough, you're free to escape the contract, get out of jail free card in 2 months. But if we find it and you continue with the show, it's your contract set. And our clients range somewhere between $3,000 to $10,000 a month.
You said hiring has been a pain for you.
Yeah.
What type of people are you trying to hire? Like what skill sets?
Yeah, so right now we're hiring for sales, we're hiring for outreach, we're hiring for social media, and we're hiring for something else that's on the top, secretary work. And while some of these are pretty straightforward, like people that can sell B2B is awesome, but I have, so far myself and my co-founder have been selling between all the other fun stuff that we get to do in managing these shows. And so I've been trying to put in place systems that will make them easier to hire, but it's the training period that's difficult. A lot of people haven't jumped on podcasting yet, and so when I bring them on, they can't do their job as effectively for a month or so because there's such a steep learning curve. And I need to teach that from my outreach specialist to one of my market researchers to even the person who would be answering the phones, because we have an open door with questions. So any podcast, for example, because I know everybody can't afford $5,000 a month for their podcast, we have an open door with any questions of any indie show. So if you're a smaller podcast that just wants some help, we will 100% of the time, no matter what, even if you're our competitor, answer your questions, because we want to help the small podcaster. So we want them to be able to have access to that information and knowledge. So it's just building a book. That's kind of the issue. And training them, making a succinct training process.
When you work with people, then do you work on their client list, developing their client lists after you do your 2 months research? Is that what you do?
Mm-hmm. So during that period, we'll find out if the market's actually there for them. So, for example, Boxer, the company that did the Amazon selling, we figured out that their podcast audience was overrepresented on Reddit. They're young men, usually between the ages of 25 and 35, who were lower middle income range, majority of which were not in college, and we also found that they had a higher elevation for risk. So we found that advertising was exorbitantly more of it applicable for them on Reddit, and so doing an AMA and lurking there was more effective to see if their audience was there. So when we actually launched what we call shadow podcasts or fake podcasts, they were to click on that more, and then we were able to identify those specific keywords and build their list up that way. So we're able to not only build them a list, but we're also able to directly target that specific market segment of which they're trying to attack directly.
What's the typical ROI on an investment for working with you?
It depends on the market. I mean, a furniture company that works with us gets a different ROI than somebody who just wants to put out good karma and talk about, essential oils, for example. But the podcast usually pays for itself and the contract within 6 months, and they're usually making a good profit within the year.
Thanks.
What is like your future big plan? Like, where are you going? What are your dreams the next few years?
So this is something it's kind of interesting when I think about like dreams and plans for my company. So I really, really believe that something that makes a good entrepreneur personally is that someone who really, really likes the hard stuff, the difficult conversations, the grind, the sleeping on the floor, the doing the things you don't want to until 2 o'clock in the morning. That's fun to me. I love that. So when I talk about, the difficult things of having to hire appropriately and fire appropriately and, stay up online and research, market segments or whatever it is, I think that's super, super fun. But at the same time, while I have my head in the dirt, I also have to keep this big image. And sometimes I even talk to people about like the fact that I want to open up 7 branches in 6 countries for LaunchPod, and I want it to be $100 million business in 3 years. And we're on track to hit that. Within the first year, being able to bring in our first $1 million is awesome. And I speak Japanese and Korean, so I want to open. The Koreans listen to 4 times more podcasts than we do, and there's not a single agency over there. There's been 7 agencies here. 4 of them have been purchased in the past 6 months for 270, 230, 190, and 61 million each. And so it's a booming market, and there's 2 big players who are snapping up everybody really fast. My goal is I want to be able to get international before everybody else can, and then when it comes to the big players like Disney and Toyota who want to do a podcast, then I'm the only option. That's my goal.
So have you done any spiritual work? I have a friend who's one of the most listened to Protestant pastors on the internet, but because his theology is so close to the Latter-day Saints, a lot of people reject him too, and he's rejected joining the church because he doesn't want to lose his job, which is pastoring a church. He's a terrible pastor, but a great speaker. He ought to be on a podcast. Have you ever worked with anybody like that?
I would love to. See, the thing is, I'm not an expert in all the areas of content. For example, like I can't have kids, I'm adopting. I'm not an expert in birth at all. One of the companies that we're working with right now is a cannabis company out of California. Another one is an LDS group that we're assisting here in Utah. My job is to turn on the lights and to make sure there's a viable market there. I grew up in Nebraska, where my next-door neighbor was a Seventh-day Adventist preacher, and I'm not kidding, my other next-door neighbor was a Mexican Presbyterian minister. My parents are both converts to the LDS Church, as am I. So I have no problem with people proselyting on their religion on any podcast platform. So if he'd like to get found out, I'd happily help him.
Okay, but is there any lower cost way than $10,000 a month?
Right now we're certifying coaches to be able to help smaller podcasts so that they can kind of get walked through a similar process and still have help in that area.
So what is the coach certification?
We're still working that out right now, but we're looking at a 3-month contract of I think $1,500.
Okay.
I listen to a ridiculous amount of podcasts, and one of the things that amazes me is the high number, percentage-wise, of the ones I listen to, around 50 podcasts that I follow. And an amazing number of them don't monetize at all. They do no advertising or whatever.
Yes.
If somebody comes to you with an idea and says, I think I've got an idea for a podcast, can you help them figure out how to monetize it? Because in some cases, they don't have a product to sell. I mean, they might be able to create it, but that isn't their goal. They just want to get information out there.
Absolutely.
And you also work with them to help monetize it.
Absolutely.
Also, so what can they look for that would be applicable and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so there's 4 ways to monetize a podcast, going from least effective to most effective. You can first do ads, which are the normal ads you hear for MeUndies or for Blue Apron. Those are negligibly effective. It's about as effective as a television commercial. You can go to a sponsorship where you usually make a relationship with an existing company that you have to be able to fund, like a patron. You can move up to there to being able to there's a model where you can usually do a subscription, or they can get extra content behind a paywall. So, for example, if I talk about literature and people want to hear more about The Great Gatsby from me, I can put out episode 1, 2, 3, and 4, like Hardcore History, what Dan Carlin can do. And then when it's all out, I'm going to block that behind a paywall except for episode 1. So as long as you're keeping up, you get it all free, but if you want more, you can get access to that. And the 4th method is usually selling your own product. We've worked with every single one of these areas and been able to help people be successful in them, but that's one of the process that we validate and help them assist as that goes forward. Some people like doing courses, some people like selling sneakers. It really just depends on your market and who's listening. So we want to make sure that those line up from your audience and your customer to your show, to how you're monetizing, and when that's appropriate. For example, my show that I used to get through college, my 5-minute daily Japanese show, I didn't monetize it until after a year. That's just because I didn't want people putting their little fingers into my Japanese show and having an ad, a 1-minute ad in my 5-minute podcast. So I resisted all the way till the end, and now I do a very, very small 30-second ad once a week.
So you not only can talk to folks about the methods and whatever, but you actually can recommend what approaches would seem to make sense for the specific podcast.
Yep, and we'll coach them through the process.
Cool.
I got a quick question. So I'm just kind of getting new into the podcast world.
Welcome.
And thank you. There's so many, and I don't really want to spend my time kind of filtering some of those out.
Yep.
And you guys do such a great job in your production. Is there a place where a landing page or somewhere I can go to see all of the podcasts that you are producing? And then be able to listen that way.
So this is something I'm actually super excited about, and we're going to cross our fingers. So if y'all pray to whatever God you believe in, that this will happen. So 2 things. One, with the discoverability, according to podcasters, 64% of them say that's the biggest issue with podcasting. That raised this last year to 69% say that's the issue. Okay, so 2 things have happened. One, Apple started curating their content more specifically, making it harder for indie podcasters to get found, but business podcasts to get found easier by curating the individual pages on their app. That's good for me, bad for everybody else. Alongside that, on the front page of iTunes and Apple is something called featured providers. We've applied to be a featured provider because so many of our shows have already been featured by Apple. 89% of our shows are now featured by Apple in some way, shape, or fashion. And the other 11% are featured on Spotify. So we will now, hopefully, in the next couple months, on the front page, right beside Slate and New York Times, we'll have a tab that says LaunchPod Media and have a list of all of our shows. You can also go to our website, launchpod.media, for all of our case studies as well. The other way that we're doing this, we're playing a big bet for discoverability. We've been investing this for about 8 months now. Google has now started searching podcasts. So if you go into your iPhone or your Android and you type in health podcast, you can now play podcasts directly from your Google search. And above everything else, I hope the SEO people kind of get chills from this, but above every single thing else, it goes, if you type in whatever podcast, it lists all the podcasts directly at the top, has the first result, videos, and then the rest of the results. So little bit having a podcast in that area, I get to jump my clients to the top of the list on Google. And so we've been able to rank it on that way, and Google's still figuring out exactly how to do it. They have 8 different ways right now, but we know how to play all of them so far.
I wouldn't diminish anything of what you've just said,
Please.
But I will say that of all the podcasts I listen to, I've not found one of them that way.
Absolutely.
Every one of the podcasts I've found has been by hearing someone who does a podcast on another podcast or have one of the podcasts. So do you help folks cross do that? Because I find that most of the folks I know that listen to podcasts, that's how they get into it, is they hear one that they like, they follow it a lot, And then lo and behold, that person will say, by the way, check this one out. And the next thing you know, that's how they go. It becomes a referral, quote unquote, from a friend, because it's a podcaster you
Absolutely.
already like. And I find that that's how I found, I think, every single one of the podcasts I listen to.
So until this last year, that was the #1 way people found podcasts. But this last year, people actually searched up on Google how to find top lists of podcasts, and that has now become the #1 way. However, for every single show that we have a dedicated outreach specialist who's in charge of getting you on other shows, bringing high-level clients onto your show, and getting you backlinks and references in magazines, blogs, articles, Facebook groups, and etc. I don't want to take time from the next speaker, so I'll take that last question. What can 1 million cups do for me, if you don't mind?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So 36% of of entrepreneurs listen to a podcast at least once a week. Most of them listen to an average of 4+ a week. So I'm going to guess a number of you already listen to some podcasts. What I'd like you to be able to do is, if you are looking, I guess 2 things. If you have any hiring advice, I think one of the #1 things that make entrepreneurs successful outside of, eating dirt is, there's a saying in Japanese which basically translates to "everyone is my teacher." I am divorced enough from my business to be able to take any advice you give me and apply it directly, and if I don't like it, I won't do it, but if it's actually going to be helpful, I don't care if it hurts my feelings. My feelings are infinitesimal to compare to my company. I don't care. So if you have any advice for me on how I should be hiring and how I should be doing that, I want to hear from you. That feedback to me is gold, especially because I'm sure all of you have done more hiring than I have. So if you'd like to come speak with me after, I'd love to hear information on hiring. #2, when it comes to being able to listen to podcasts, I would recommend that you start venturing outside of the traditional Apple app for one reason. They're going to be curating podcasts more and more and more because Spotify has openly said, and iTunes has rebutted back with they're trying to become the Netflix of podcasts, which I think is the antithesis to what podcasting is. Podcasting is not Netflix, it's YouTube. And where capitalism works in the industry, it's going to work also with content. So if you would like to be able to support your indie podcasters, you can still get all of your big shows on every single podcast app, or else they wouldn't have an audience. But I recommend going outside of there and helping these smaller podcasters, the guys who are doing shows out of their basement, the gals who are talking with their friends and have just as much experience and knowledge, but are going to be buried by Apple if they don't get on top of discoverability in the next 6 months. Thank you.
All right, great stuff. So fun to hear about that. That makes me want to become expert in something. All right, announcements. Let's have Seth. Oh, you're right there in front of me. You blended in somehow. Seth's going to talk to us about Rev Up.
Well, I mean, we have 2 events this week at RevRoad. So tomorrow we also have RevU. We have Drew Major coming. He is one of the guys who turned around Novell, and he is the CTO of Sling now. So that's kind of the interview we're doing with him. We're going to be talking about marketing, have our marketing area show us what they do. And then every week, every Thursday from 4 to 5:30, I do Rev Up, which is a lean startup kind of methodology workshop that we do right here, just typically in the conference room. So if you are having difficulty getting going, or if you want to make sure you kind of start right, what we try to do is get people customers before they design their product, and to have a market-based approach to entrepreneurship, because that's where we're seeing the best sort of results, right? If you can find customers before you've built a product, then you've got certainty in what you're doing before you've spent any money, and that's what we're doing in RevUp. So,
highly recommend it. I've attended it, and just great classes. Again, I think it's for those of us like myself that haven't taken a business class, it is just like baptism by fire, getting all the most important parts of starting a business, and you're actually working on your thing as you go. So
yeah, we try to emphasize this is what you should be doing right now. This is how to do it. Go and do this now. It's not not a 30,000-foot view. You're kind of in the trenches with what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh, RevU is Thursday. It's the first Thursday of every month. It's a once-a-month thing. It's from 11 to 1. So
Lunch included.
Yeah, lunch is included with that. So that'll be in the morning, and then in the evening toward the end of the business day, that's when we do Rev Up.
Right on. Thank you. And Jim from Business Resource Center. Tell us what's going down.
A lot of things are going down. First of all, I'll let you know that we work with RevRoad, so it's not like we're competition. We do a lot of stuff, training, etc. Our goal is to make money for any company. So if you're an existing company, we want you to make more money, pay more taxes. That's how we get paid, is from tax dollars. So that's kind of reality check. So when we say we do stuff for free, that is true, but your taxes are paying for it. We have some new incubator space opening up. We made some consolidations, and we're opening some new space. We have some people basically going on it, and their business is more successful if they're leaving us. So let you know that's going to be available. We still have all the classes. We're doing a lot more Zoom classes now. We're bringing in people out of Heber campus to do training, so we have a bigger depth of large training. So let us know. We provide a lot of one-on-one free counseling, which is great. I mean, you can come through RevRoad and go to class, and you have questions. You can actually come to us, and we'll help you with the same content for free, and send you right back. So it's a fun thing, new thing. We have some. I mean, I've got the guy who helped design and build the Nike campus is one of our counselors. Give the credibility of who we have. We've got people with a couple master's degrees. It's just kind of a fun environment, and it's free.
Awesome. And yeah, all that has been announced, those are all free events. So very cool what we have here in the community. So, and any other announcements? I think that's, we've got, okay. So we have Mandy Tanner, who is here for her first time, and we had an extra slot open. So she is going to, so come on up. So she didn't come with the intent to present, but she has kind of a new business, nonprofit, that she's working through and would love advice. And I think this is a great place to do that. We've got a lot of experienced people. And so we're going to do a little different format. So tell us about your organization, and then tell us about what are some of your pain points, and we can kind of address those as a group. So let's see how this goes. Okay.
All right. Yeah, I was not prepared for this. Matter of fact, I came and I was like, I'm just going to sit back for like 4 or 5 of these and then maybe apply to present. Well, this is fire. So this is going to be super easy for you guys because there's like a million things that we're struggling with. So, sorry, I might get emotional here. So I grew up in a family of 9 girls, 5 boys. So there were 14 of us. I never got to dance until I was an adult and could pay for it myself. So my nonprofit is an organization that allows families who have multiple kids, families who have health issues, to have their kids dance. Sorry, I don't know why I'm emotional. You put me on the spot. Anyway, so I have no business experience. I know how to dance. I know how to structure a dance class. I have no idea how to do anything else. So for years, I was running everything. I was running the finances. I was running, the dance classes, 25 dance classes a week. I was, all of this teaching from either my basement or the Petite Neat Museum there in Payson, and pretty much just burning myself out, knowing nothing. Finally, I got a lady who doesn't know a lot about finances, but with her husband, who's an accountant, she's willing to learn, and so she's been able to take that over. We are now officially a nonprofit. None of us make any money at all. We're still donating all of our time. So pretty much at this point, any advice would work. We have applied for, I officially applied for my first grant and got it. So we got $1,000 worth of reusable costumes and don't have a closet to put them in. So we're good. But we have costumes. So, pretty much anything. Marketing, grant writing. Another one of our programs is training teachers. We take youth who are high school students, college students who don't have any dance teaching experience but want to teach. They can't get hired on other companies because they don't have any experience, and so it's a little harder. And so they can come to us, and I train them as a teacher, teaching them how to structure their class, teaching them how to move up in this industry and get some experience, and then they move on and they go teach somewhere else. So that's kind of everything in a nutshell. So like I said, anything. I don't even know what to ask first. Starbright Dance. Starbright Dance. And we have a website. It's starbrightdance.org. So we have our first sponsor, too, so that's good.
Okay, here's some simple advice really quick. Let's monetize your certificate, and then you have an income stream. So you can then become a certification company that certifies dance instructors. Then you have a monetization to be able to generate income. Stop by the Small Business Resource Center. Right now we have 6 MBA students that are available to help people.
Okay.
That are sitting around my office, and I assign them all kinds of things to do, but they can help do research, help grants, etc. But we should talk, because I think you could take this, because like I said, you're not getting an income stream, but you're teaching people. But if you developed a certification program, you could charge a yearly subscription, you could charge a monthly subscription, and do certification and have an income stream for yourself outside the nonprofit to be able to help you survive and do what you want to do.
That's great. That's a lot of big words. I'm going to have to research a couple of those.
I'd like to know. Oh, go ahead, Jim. I'd like to know what your big vision is for this. Like, you've told us about this company and why you started the company. What is your big vision? What would you like to see this company do, and why?
Has anyone ever seen or heard of City of Angel Ballet in Los Angeles? That's my vision. I want to be him. He goes into the inner city schools and he does like what are they called? An assembly where he teaches the kids about ballet, and then he actually has them come up and he checks their body out and their feet out, and he tells them who has a good shot at being a great ballerina. And he says he doesn't turn anyone away, even if they don't have the perfect feet. But he promotes it, and he actually, none of his kids pay anything. All of his kids are inner city kids. They do ballet, and they go perform all over. It's awesome. I just love it.
So, go.
Ladies first.
Thank you. So I come from the nonprofit space, and I think in the nonprofit space, there's a lot of limitations, and a lot of them are our own limitations of the way we're thinking. We're like, we got to just bust through this and donate our time, and everybody should be donating their time. And the nonprofit sector is changing quite a bit because funders are changing. They want to know like your metrics. They want to know, they kind of want to see ROI, the return on investment of their donation. And so they're asking for like impact evaluation statistics, like showing what you're doing. And that's difficult when you're small, and so then funding is difficult, etc. So one thing is just really approaching this with how can we generate income through our model like a business. So again, your mission is for those that can't pay to not pay. So is everybody free, or is there like a sliding scale of?
No, right now we have, so everyone pays the same rate. Right now we just provide scholarships to those who can't afford it. And our rates are super low. We basically cover cost right now. I would like to implement a sliding scale based on income, number of children and family, kind of like the school has, where they have like the free and reduced lunch kind of a situation. That is my goal, to do that. We also have like so if there's a specific child who wants to apply for the scholarship, they have to write me a letter, tell me why they deserve this scholarship. I have a little girl right now who's fabulous. She's a little diabetic child, wears her little cups on the back of both arms. That kid is a firecracker. That's the kind of kid we want in our program, because we want them and their family to be able to have dance. The money that the family puts into her diabetes and to monitor that and keep it going is very strenuous. And so I would like to see a sliding scale, and I'd like to see a lot more scholarships. I really would like to get sponsors to sponsor maybe a specific dancer, and they get to watch that dancer go through their career.
That's a great idea. So I'll just make 2 quick comments.
Okay.
One is like making sure you capture the stories of your impact. So you can be telling those stories, like that on your website is, here's this girl and she's a firecracker and she's got diabetes, and because of this is, so the storytelling aspect, really honing in on that, because the stories and you can tell them person to person, but that's really help with bringing people on.
Okay.
In addition to, saying we have this many dancers that are affected, so the more statistic part.
So people are seeing it. That's a good idea.
Yeah, and like social media, like that could be
Yeah,
a
we
really
have an
special
Instagram.
thing.
It's
Oh, cool.
new. We just started it, so.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, we're moving.
And then this is just a secret resource that's out there. There's a family foundation called Sorensen Legacy Foundation. And they do every quarter you can apply for funding. And the secret is that pretty much you, like, especially for your first application, even if you don't have a track record, they'll grant you about $10,000. Like you apply, you put a specific amount, but that's, I think, how much they kind of grant for first timers that they like kind of take a chance on.
Okay.
And so if you have your 501c3, the next application, the last one was just September 1st, so it was just due a few days ago. So December 1st,
Okay.
apply. So just go on Sorensen Legacy Foundation.
Okay.
And yeah.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be a good
that
way
would
to
be
kickstart
fabulous.
what you're doing. So
Yeah, great. All right. Go ahead.
So, two things. First, way to go to keep it up this time. That's the hard / really, really fun part of, learn how to do QuickBooks for the first time, and now I have to run a company outside of my main area of expertise. That's really cool. Two things. So when I was first starting my personal podcast, the way I got people to pay attention to me was outreach. I found that if you call and tell them how it benefits them to be a sponsor, or even just to like, hey, we'd love to come and dance at your school or whatever, most people, 9 times out of 10, they're totally stoked because you're giving them a platform, putting your logo on their jersey or putting it up in the school or whatever, and they get that good nature out of it. We reach out to people every day, and most of them, as long as you talk to them like a human, are actually pretty chill. I got cool people from Japan and the United States talking to a 25-year-old kid over the phone for a podcast, and it was actually really exciting. That's how we got on like the #1 blogs for things and stuff like that. Number 2, Instagram is good for your audience. TikTok is 100 times better.
TikTok?
TikTok.
Okay. I've never heard of that.
Breathe and live TikTok, and it will, all the little girls and boys your age. I grew up in theater, so this is a close cousin.
We actually have a theater program in our program.
Yeah.
So we know that realm.
Freaking TikTok, man. It's blowing up like crazy, and these kids of this age, that's what they do all day.
Okay. Sweet. That's cool. All right. Anything else?
Here you go. So if you want to become like the guy in L.A., what's keeping you from slavishly following what he did to get where he is?
So one of the things that we did is we were like, okay, well, let's go to the schools. Let's talk to the schools. So we went ahead and applied for the ability to go into the schools last year, which was technically our first year as an actual nonprofit. So we did the application. We were approved. We even circled the flyer thing. 16,000 flyers later, we sent out the letter to all the principals. The lady called us back because word got back to her, and she's like, you can't do what you're doing. I'm like, what do you mean? We can't do what we're doing. So it was just a misunderstanding on that part. We still couldn't pass out flyers in the school, so she thought we were doing an assembly type setup. So we are working towards being able to do an assembly where we're going into the schools the way the guy in LA does. So that's kind of one of our big things, because a lot of our issues also is the kids just don't know we exist. I'm looking for those gems, those kids who are gonna really appreciate this program because they can't do dance and they've always wanted to dance their whole life. So yeah, that's kind of our goal, is working towards having an assembly style where we go into the schools and let the people know that we exist. So I think that answers your question.
So what is the area that you're targeting? And specifically, I'm asking that because if you're South Valley, there's probably less money, in who you can reach out to. But if you're Utah County, you've got all of Alpine that may be getting involved. So.
Yep. Right now we are south. We are located in Payson, and that has been a problem because you've got Santaquin, Salem. We're just kind of a small community, so that has been a problem that we've come up against. So I would like to see this program grow and maybe have a couple of chapters, but for now we're working in the South Valley. And there is a need there. There's plenty of kids who need it because of the income issue. But it's just the funding is a huge issue down there as well.
I just had a thought. Is it possible to do like a like pay one get one free? So like you have a chapter that actually pays the price, and then that helps sponsor for other students to be in a different dancing class or a different part of it where they get it for free, or that's the scholarship. So you charge some people more that covers the cost of both students, and one's free, or one's sponsored and one's...
Yeah, that's kind of how it's being run right now. We have our regular paying students, and then we have scholarship kids who are basically being covered by the other students, because that's the only way money's coming in at this point. So we have families who can't afford it and are doing okay, they're paying, and then their money is basically circulating back, and that's how many scholarships we can give. We're limited on scholarships based on how many paying kids we have, because right now we're not receiving any funding yet. So eventually I'd like to see more funding coming in so that we can have more scholarships.
I think that'd be a cool story, just to say like, hey, for everyone that you guys are paying for, you actually pay for or sponsor another person to do it.
Yeah, we tell our parents that. They really like that, so it's really cool. So the ones who can't afford it, they're totally chill with helping out for other kids and stuff like that. So yeah, that's basically how we've been running it. So I'm trying to think of any questions I might have for you guys. Yeah, pretty much everything.
Great.
So.
Well, thank you so much. What can we as a 1 Million Cups community do for you then, if you're thinking about questions that you can ask us?
Basically, a lot of my questions are how to just run the business in general. Like I said, I don't have a business degree. I'm kind of like floundering in that way. So these classes are going to be super awesome. I've already learned stuff today, so I'm just really excited to find you guys. I'm like, yes, people who care. So.
Thank you.
All right. Great to have you. I think this just shows the power of the entrepreneur community and supporting each other. So thanks so much for being our guinea pig. And thank you, everybody, for coming. Thanks again to RevRoad for providing this beautiful space and providing their wonderful cereal bar, Creo Brew for continuing to provide that coffee alternative for Utah Valley. And thank you all for coming out today. So we will see you next week. And actually, I just want to say we are looking for presenters all the time, so I would encourage you to apply, even if you have, we kind of have a spectrum from half-baked ideas that haven't even launched, that are way pre-launch, up through those that have received, millions in funding. So there's a place for all of that here, and that's what keeps it exciting and interesting. So encourage you to apply. Tell people that you're talking to come and join our community and be a part of helping this to grow. Yeah. Yes, so it's 1 Million Cups. So it's number 1, millioncups.com, and then it's /Provo. And so right there, it's a pretty simple application system, and we'll work with you to get ready for presenting. And yeah, I'd love to have you. And once you apply, and once you present at 1 Million Cups, you have like a passport to apply at any 1 Million Cups. So you can go up to Salt Lake. If you're traveling in Chicago, you can go to Chicago's 1 Million Cups and present, which is cool. So it does open up to nationwide places that you can present when you're traveling. So, all right, thanks so much, and have a great Wednesday.